states continue to maintain their complicit and subservient position towards Israel, then why should Israel change? Why should it change? There's no reason. And this is proven time after time after time that Israel continues. As we're all distracted talking about statehood, yesterday Israel resumed demolitions of the homes of Bedouin communities in the West Bank. After an interruption of 1 month, they started destroying Bedouin homes again for the expansion of the settlement of Kfar Adumim. No one's talking about that. They're all talking about this fantasy state that the UN is, declaring. And the attention has gone away from the reality on the ground. So the BDS movement brings attention back to the reality and brings attention to real self-determination for Palestinians. And that's the point I want to conclude on. That self-determination is not statehood. It can be statehood, but we should be careful not to mix these terms. Self-determination means the right of the Palestinian people to determine their future as a whole. It doesn't just mean statehood. And we have been taught to think of it as just statehood. But statehood without rights for the refugees, without voice of the refugees taking part in the decision, is not self-determination. Statehood without including the struggle of Palestinian citizens of Israel who are facing unprecedented racism and persecution and threats of expulsion is not self-determination. Self-determination is when the rights of all Palestinians are addressed and included. What I believe is that the BDS movement has the potential not just to raise the price of the status quo for Israel, but to start to hold European leaders in particular accountable for their complicity and the impunity they've granted to Israel. Because it was exactly like that with South Africa. We like to think now when we look back that, oh, well, we were all against apartheid from the first day. That's not true. The first BDS call came from South African civil society in 1955. It took until the mid-1980s until it was mainstream. Why did it take so long? Does it have to take so long with Palestine? And the last people to support BDS were governments. Remember that at that time, Mrs. Thatcher and some of the other European governments, the Reagan administration, was saying constructive engagement with South Africa, not sanctions. If South Africa feels isolated and threatened, they'll be less likely to make concessions. All of the exact same arguments that are made now to maintain Israel's impunity. But it was popular pressure and civil society pressure that eventually forced governments to impose sanctions. And we've now seen the first government impose sanctions on Israel, and that's the government of Turkey, the democratically elected government of Turkey. And I think it's a very significant step that they took. It has embarrassed the Arab regimes, including Egypt, who continue, no matter what Israel does, to maintain normal diplomatic relations. So the tide is turning, things are changing. If I come back to the Netherlands in another 2 years, I think things will be very different. I think the BDS movement will be bigger. I think that Israel's efforts to derail us, no matter how harsh they get, will have failed to work, because this isn't about targeting particular organizations or particular individuals. They can do that, and they can malign us, and they can try to ruin our reputation. They can try to sabotage and attack us. But this is a movement rooted really in a broad spectrum of public opinion that's gaining strength. And as for the Palestinians, they're looking at the situation in the region, and they're seeing people starting to wake up and reclaim their right to be represented and to have governments that work for them instead of them working for the government. And that's an ongoing process in Tunisia and Egypt and other countries that's very far from complete. And I think Palestinians themselves will have begun down that road too. So I'm quite optimistic. In the medium term, I think 5 to 10 years, we have it in our hands to see a radical transformation in the situation. But in the short term, we're going to face even more vicious attacks, attempts to sabotage our work, attempts to intimidate us into silence. But I think it's like a passing storm or a passing earthquake. It shakes things a bit, and then we carry on. And that's what we have to do, and to do it with more determination than ever. Thank you.